Battle passes, they are one of the largest trends of 2019. Pretty much everyone is doing them. Are they good? Do they incentivize good development practices? What are the implications on how games are actually made? Well, gotta be honest here, I think they're a pretty darn grim development for our industry, for our hobby. I think they are just the next iteration of psychologically aware design that aims to exploit the human brain's reward systems in a way that certainly is effective, but I do think is bad for consumers. Today we are going to go through what's actually going on, the psychological tics that are being played on you by this, and importantly, what this means for us as gamers and also the industry as a whole. Now first, many might say, hey, the Battle Pass gives me enough currency, premium currency, to just buy the next one. Aye, that's part of the point. Let's talk about habit formation. So for some context, earlier on in this year, Netflix actually said that their main competitor is Fortnite. That it's not actually, say, HBO Go. Now the point there from them was that the entertainment industry is time limited. The audience there, well, they've only got so much time after work, and that's what everyone is competing for. And it's within that context the habit formation angle of the Battle Passes really comes into play. Because sure, you do Battle Pass A, Season 3, right? You earn all of your premium currency through that, then you can buy Season 4 for free, fine, but in order to do that, you will have had to have played a lot of that game, and then you'll purchase the next Battle Pass. Fair enough, but the thing there is, it has went into your routine, and it's basically incentivized you doing that same activity all the time, and that is how so many of these games are competing with film, with television, and with other games that maybe have a less engaging Battle Pass. And what this essentially is it's you kind of doing virtual work for the game. The way that you're progressing along that all ties into the habit formation. Really for a long time within, say, the MMO genre, we've known that, yeah, a lot of people who play games, they kind of like some virtual simulated work to progress along. There are many game genres that really are kind of focused on that. But this Battle Pass business, that is really bringing that out into a lot more of the more broad, like, mainstream genres, and it really is extremely effective. It's kind of taking the sort of internal RPG progression systems of a lot of games and then just applying them wholesale to a lot of stuff, creating that virtual work that leads to the habit formation that really just keeps people stuck into a smaller number of games. Now, what that's really doing is it's preying upon a few things. There's that, feeling where you really want to be progressing along something or else you'll be wasting your time. Like, yeah, I could play a round of CSGO and just get a little bit better at it, but, what would I be getting in return? Or, I could play another very similar game, but I could level up, get some cool new stuff. That's one psychological tic. There's also many different fears. The fear of loss, the fear of missing out, the fear of being inefficient. All those things the Battle Pass systems actually play into. But first, there's a fear that I think is not talked about nearly enough. So there's a very interesting thing that happens around the economics of games. People value their time and their money in a very different fashion. A lot of people actually view their time outside of their job to be a free resource. It's not really worth that much. Yet, money, well, they certainly do, have a lot of an emphasis on money. Now, what that means is that, say, in the context of a Battle Pass where you're getting your free currency so you can get your next Battle Pass, you'll essentially be doing tens of hours of work for what, $10? Doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it plays in that thing where the time and money have very warped value perceptions for people. Now, let's go on to some of the other fears. So there is a fear of loss, and this comes in a few different ways. So there's a fear of financial loss, right? That you actually pay for a Battle Pass, but because you don't play for the whole thing, you don't get your rewards. And that is something that's going to keep those engagement numbers high, because you've literally created a thing where somebody has bought something, but then might not actually get all of it unless they stay committed to working on your game. So there's that. There's also the fear of loss of efficiency, where somebody is playing a game, they're playing a game for free, but they know there's the other track of the Battle Pass, so that means they could be getting a lot more for the time that they're actually playing. Now, it doesn't even matter that the things in the Battle Pass probably are just, fluff that's not really worth that much, but still, there is that fear of that just internal thing of, I'm doing this work, I could be getting more for it if I only just put in this little bit of money to the Battle Pass. And that is another thing that will keep that engagement going and keep that feeling of simulated work going. And then even past that, there are a bunch of other things, but I think you get the point, right? It's playing on so many fundamental psychological tics to the point where, it's an effective thing, but is it a good thing? Is it a right thing? Is it something that is actually additive to the experience of the people who are playing games? Now, I also want to talk about player expectation concerns. I think this is a very interesting thing here. Games now are demanding more of our time than ever, and a lot of that is being done through these big battle pass systems that are basically getting you to do a whole bunch of grinding. Now, the thing there is that by expanding the playtime requirements, at least the perceived playtime requirements of a smaller number of really big Battle Pass live service games, what that kind of does is it forces out games that don't use those techniques, because that gets onto the topic of virtual work, which is something that humans find extremely satisfying. Look, I've been involved in World of Warcraft pretty much since the beginning. That's a game that's got a lot of virtual work. I mean, there's games where, if I want to be a space trucker in Elite Dangerous, I sure did enjoy that for a bit. It's that thing where, give us a bar, we'll fill up the bar, get a little dopamine hit, we'll be happy, and we'll keep on going with our day. Now, the thing is that can be, really integrated into a game's design where it really feels like it's at one with the world, or, it can be through a battle pass system, just be wholesale applied to really whatever type of game that you want. And that gives you the virtual work. Now, the thing is, there's types of games where that virtual work really isn't appropriate, right? Where it's not going to be additive to the overall game's experience, its aesthetic, its theme, etc. But the thing is that by not tapping into that extremely powerful font of, power and engagement, those games will actually be pushed out of the market. They'll be less viable because the games that actually do decide to, take a sip from that poison chalice, well, what'll happen? They will get more engagement because these techniques actually do work on consumers. And maybe for the most core of gaming audiences, we're able to not really pay heed to those things. But sadly, when you actually have the numbers bear out, it seems like those things actually do matter and actually do work. And I think that is really concerning, both for the design of the games that actually use the battle passes, but also for, the fact that I think a lot of more high quality games with a lot better content are just a little bit pushed out of the market for not using that. Now let's talk about the design concerns here, right? Because if you're doing a big battle pass game, then what's going to happen? Well, you're really focusing in on the reward system of your game. So you just want to make some, core highly repetitive modes and then just get your battle pass going. Now the thing is, the rewards that are actually in that battle pass, where are they best earned? Are they best earned in your game world by completing an in-game challenge? Something bespoke that actually provides a unique challenge or gameplay experience for the player. I think that is what is ideal for earning a new reward in the game. What actually happens in a battle pass system though? Well, all of your efforts get boiled into an experience number, they get shoved into a bar that goes up a little bit. I think that creates a massive homogenization of rewards in these games, and I really do think it's actually worse for the quality of the video games themselves, and it actually robs a lot of modern games of a lot of things we used to love in older games, like completing challenges, finding secrets, those kind of things. And that's really where I've got to think, well, is this good for us as gamers? Is this good for our core games? I mean, what does it actually do? First, it encourages the reuse of gameplay content, right? You just want to get a small number of activities that are highly repetitive, and it basically just does incentivize developers to really focus on pumping their system full of rewards and getting that repetitive content, which, to be honest, I think leads to a less varied, less diverse, less interesting gaming diet that ultimately waters down the quality of our hobby, unless you really do try to actually seek out the unique, interesting games. There's also a thing here called the justification effect, and I think there are so many people these days who feel so just ambivalent and, bored of gaming because of the over-justification effect. Now, what actually is this? Well, if you take a game, right, and somebody is playing it for an intrinsically motivated reason, so, they just enjoy getting better every time they play it, they just really enjoy the core game, well, that's them, intrinsically motivated. They're playing it because they enjoy it. Now, if you then give people an extrinsic motivation for doing what they were previously intrinsically motivated to do, what happens? Well, people are no longer playing the game purely for the joy of playing the game. I mean, they're doing a bit of that, but they're also playing the game in order to get those extrinsic rewards. Now, what ends up happening there? Well, when you actually remove those extrinsic rewards, either the developers remove them or the player actually just over time stops caring about them, they'll actually find that because they've been playing that game for so long, not based on their own intrinsic enjoyment of that game, that, they'll just wander off, they'll get bored, the game will just not have that, motivation behind it for them. And this has happened in so many games. This can happen a lot in action RPGs. World of Warcraft is a game that has really suffered from this, and I think with a lot of these Battle Pass games, you are massively going to see this happen in the future. Because ultimately, when you look at a lot of these Battle Passes, they're not that well integrated, right? They are they are sort of arbitrary rewards, and I've got to just wonder how long is that really going to hold people's attention. Now, there is another thing here, and that is the attention economy, and this is all within the context of whether these systems are actually good for gamers and good for like one's enjoyment of the hobby. At the end of the day, as I said, there's all those psychological ticks that are being applied, through a Battle Pass-like system to get your attention, to slurp up your hours and make sure that you're not going and watching TV or playing another game. I think that's actually quite bad. I think that leads to us just having a bit of psychological burnout, right? We've got this, we've got a bit of fear of missing out here, fear of not being efficient over here. You've got all those things kind of like running your brain instead of just you thinking, what do I actually want to do? What do I enjoy for its intrinsic qualities? I think a game like Disco Elysium, one of the best ones of this year, incredible, but it's not using those psychological ticks to get you to play it. It's trying to get you to play it because it's just a bloody good game. But the thing is that in a world where so many people are being slurped in by their battle passes and things, I think it does hurt just the ability for people to actually have a broad, diverse gaming diet that involves, more interesting indies or more interesting AAAs. And what it ends up causing is just people to double down on a few select titles, which I think is just not really that good. I think it also leads to another interesting problem where you just end up having a series of Battle Pass games just in a big war for attention. And sure, that'll, drive the Battle Passes to compete with each other via, having a greater content offering. But ultimately, I think it is a psychological, kind of almost like a moral dead end for the industry. And I do not think it is good for the direction of where things are going. And speaking of where things are going, well, that's where we've got to talk about this in the context of business. So it is great for engagement numbers, undoubtedly. This will look great for investors, even if people are, being strung along by the free Battle Pass. Well, that's another MAU. So you can obviously see why that would actually be done there. Then it's also, in many ways, just actually reintroducing the subscription model into gaming, via the premium Battle Passes and the way that they work on a seasonal basis. So yes, it will increase user spending, and by giving people kind of quick hits of premium currency throughout, say, the premium Battle Pass, or maybe even just the free one, it's going to lead to more participation in the store and just generally more time on brand, which is going to lead to further player investment. And also, the great thing about these Battle Pass models for the business is, well, it's the information or the attention economy, right? It takes time away from your competitors by putting very high time requirements on your game's rewards. And, people will chase those rewards. I mean, imagine, say, if World of Warcraft had a Battle Pass now that it's went seasonal in terms of how they label their content. I mean, ouch, that would be... That would lead to a lot of people playing that game for a lot of time. And then overall, the final thing it takes me to is the economic realities of development and the implications of this. I think that there are a lot of games that, don't really fit that well for a Battle Pass model, but they're kind of having those Battle Passes shoved on them. And then that has a lot of implications for the reward loops of those games, and that even has implications on the actual core designs of those games. I think that's a really troublesome thing in the AAA space that is going to lead to a homogenization of games and ultimately be to the detriment of quality. But there's also the fact that, if there's a poison chalice that a developer or a publisher can sip, and, doing so will gain them great powers, in using those psychologically manipulative techniques, it's going to be good for them. And that kind of means that there will be a loser on the other side of that equation. And that will be the people who I think are making more, higher quality, ethical, moral games that are not relying on those things, that are trying just to rely on their own intrinsic qualities as pieces of art. And ultimately, that is my greatest worry about this as we track forward. However, I actually do have a hope here. I have a hope that the over-justification effect that I talked about, that will kick in, that people will get ambivalent towards these Battle Passes, that their effectiveness will wear off, and that, well, that business model will be the dead end that I actually do think and hope it could be. So, that's it for me. Are you getting tired of Battle Passes? Are you getting tired of games just demanding your time and just having those sort of arbitrary grinds and all that stuff? I mean, man, it is so tiresome. So let me know, what do you think down below? Thank you very much for watching this video. And with that, I'll see you next time.